Hey guys, Donnie with RotoX here. Thank you for watching the round 3 fantasy video for Ironman. This video is going to be a little bit different. I have no script with the handicaps coming out so late, and this being my busiest week for my money-making business, my livelihood. I just do not have time to set up the set, the lighting, the camera, the green screen, edit it all down with all the graphics. So it's going to be very low-key. It's going to be more of a podcast. I'll put up some videos and some visual aids for you guys. It's going to be just a very short form, audio only type podcast. So let's get right into it. Let's review the numbers from last week before we get into the picks. I have 5 guys, as always, for you to take a look at for your Ironman picks, as well as some FFL stats and what my team looks like on Thursday night. Looking at the total number of players for Loretta Lynn 2, championship players were down just 1.5%, which is a pretty acceptable amount as people leave the game as the season goes on. Total players about the same, down 1.9% to 5,351. A lot of double point riders, almost 50% of riders, 51% actually, managed to score at least 44 points, not being an all-star. As far as the all-stars go, though, bad week. Only 2 of the 15 all-stars scored a perfect 50, both of them coming in the 250 class. Your perfect score for the weekend was a 651. Wow. That's not even counting FFLs. If you would have nailed both FFLs, 681, although nobody would have done that. The percentages were super low. The median score down 17 points to 319, meaning that if you scored 320 or more, you did better than half of the paid players. Notable zeros for the weekend: Carson Brown with a 12.1% pick trend. He just apparently did not line up. Jorgensen did not get to put down a time, so he didn't qualify. Jordan Bailey did not show up, and Dylan Shorts did not show up. So 3 of the 4 weren't even on the starting gate. Moving on to the top scorers for RotoX. Cook, defending champion Cook, took the RotoX week with a 484. Kathy Hawaii, though, at an 858, still leading that league. The top championship week went to Chelik 17 with a 555. He's also leading the championship season with 1,015 points. My team was god-awful. Actually, I think it was a good team. It was just bad performance. After the first moto was over, I literally had 42 points, and 15 of those came from McElrath's FFL. Shane got me 43. Hunter, 0. His teammate Joe Shimoda, 9. Joey Crown, 36. I failed to break 100 points, including FFL in the 250s. 450s, I didn't do much better. Thank God for Justin Rodbell with 100. AC scored 72. Marvin put up 43, was the highest scoring 450 All-Star, and I don't know why I keep picking Benny Bloss, but I do. 5 points from Benny. As I mentioned before, I did go with Shane for the FFL, and I did nail that. Before we look ahead to the round 3 at Ironman, do remember that we do have a Patreon, RotoX, on Patreon. You can find information below if you want a link to that. The Patreon users get the enhanced cheat sheet, which I showed off on Twitter from last week if you want to take a look at that. But also they get a full-blown review podcast, similar to what the Pulp guys do, but it's more data-oriented. And it's something that I do. It's a first reaction. I literally, when the handicaps are announced, first time I look at them, I hit record and we go over the data as I go through them. So it's a lot of raw reaction, something that's more similar to what you guys would have. And then I kind of try to break down the numbers. But you can subscribe to that for just $5. And again, this is a completely privateer venture. I don't make any money off of this, so every little bit helps to keep it running and help me grow the show. Let's get into the 5 riders that I want you to look at for Ironman this weekend, starting off with your 250 All-Star. I don't think there is anybody to look at here except for Dylan Ferrandis. He is a 1. He went 1-1 and then 2-4. Ferrandis is about as safe as you're going to get, and he is fired up after his disappointing 4th place finish last week. His post-podium speech made it seem like he got 23rd. I also like RJ Hampshire in the spot, but I think Ferrandis on that star bike at Ironman is the absolute way to go. Pick it and, as Steve would say, break your keyboard. All of the picks that I'm going to recommend to you today, including Ferrandis, are assuming that it is dry. I know there is a threat of rain, but honestly, there's no way to predict a rain race, and I would rather not try to do that because it's going to be way too much RNG, way too much random outcomes from that. So just know that if it does rain, completely reevaluate everything. Pick safe, guys. You know the deal. I don't think we have to go over that. My first non-all-star in the 250 class that I want to go over is Pierce Brown. Let's talk about the number 163 real quick. He is on a factory equipment, so if it does end up getting wet, I think that he is still good to go. But with a moto score of 11, 16, and then 934, you take out that DNF, and he is sniffing around the top 15 in all 3 motos, including a top 10 in Moto 1 last week. So he can obviously handle the mud. But at a 5, that puts him right there. That 16 could have easily been a 15 with just a little bit of luck, and if you give that 11 or a 9 with the 5 handicap, he's going to score massive amounts of points. I think that Brown, this is going to be kind of a, I don't know what is up with Troy Lee Designs, but it seems like every single TLD KTM rider feels like every year's a contract year, and that they're trying to impress a new team or impress the team to keep them and not move along with the pipeline. But I really like Pierce Brown and Ironman at a 5 this week. Your high handicap hero for the weekend is going to be Matthias Jorgensen. I know I told you guys to take him last week, and I really hope you didn't, because he did not qualify. I'm not sure what, and unlike Zach Osborne, he only had 1 shot, whereas Osborne was in the A practice and was able to run the B. Jorgensen was not able to run the B. Maybe a little bit of controversy there, but he is up to a 17, which is a very gracious handicap. He does like when it gets muddy. He likes when it gets dirty. So if the track conditions do wither away, that's actually only going to play into his hands even better. He went 18-24 at LL1, and with a 17 handicap, that would have given him 50 points in the first moto and 20 in the second for 78 points. So please put Jorgensen on your team. Moving on to the 450s. I think the all-star pick comes down to Tomac, Musquin, or Barcia. If you can pick Marvin Musquin, I would pick Marvin Musquin. He went 4-5 in the first wave and 8-2 in the second, but his handicap is still a 3. I think Marvin is definitely a top 4 guy, even with a little bit of leeway, top 5. I think he's going to be fighting for podiums. I'm one guy that I'm going to say I was not a believer. I was really concerned with his injury and his lack of updates and riding throughout the Supercross season and off-season, but I'm a believer. He looks like he is already to mid-season form, and as much as I want to go Tomac at a 3, because how can you possibly expect Tomac to finish outside the top 4? I don't know, man. Maybe this is his year to explode. So give me Marv at a 3. I can't take him, but I hope that you can. The final 450 guy that I want to talk about is Luke Rensland at a 12. If you look at Luke's moto scores, they are exactly where you want a 12 handicap guy to be. 21-12 and then 19-40. Unfortunately, that 40 obviously hurts, and that's what makes his handicap as high as it is in the first place. But that 40 was because he did not even start. He did not take the track. I'm not sure if he had a mechanical or if it was just because it was so muddy that he didn't want to go out there as a true privateer and just completely wreck his bike. Would not blame the guy there. But if the weather is nice, I definitely have Luke on my team, and I think that you should too. Looking at FFLs, we have had 4 different riders take the FFL in the 450 class in 4 tries. So again, I am 100% out on that. If it's wet, I would go Barcia if you really want to. If it's dry, I guess maybe Cianciarulo or Osborne, but I am completely out on a 450. On the 250, I think McElrath is the clear-cut favorite for the FFLs. He had 2 of them, and he was just out of a 3rd. But if you don't want to go with a star bike for whatever reason, I think you have to go with Alex Martin, especially if it is gross. Amart ripped the whole shot and led the entire race in the second moto, but he also threw away the FFL in the first moto when he went down on the 3rd or 4th corner. So I would go McElrath with your 250 FFL and completely skip the 450. Not worth the risk at this point in the season unless you really, really, really need to make up those points. My way too early team for Ironman looks like this. I've got Dylan Ferrandis as my all-star in the 250s. I also have Jet Lawrence, Pierce Brown, and Matthias Jorgensen. Obviously, I mentioned Brown and Jorgensen already, but Jet's a top 5 talent. A 1 handicap's pretty generous, held back just by those 2 DNFs. He should absolutely be an all-star. In the 450s, I have Eli Tomac for kind of what I mentioned before, and same with Luke Rensland. I also have Tyler Bowers, who I think is somebody that is not a sexy pick at all, but an 11 is generous, and he's a guy that gets work done, and also Ben LeMay at a 16. LeMay is my sleeper pick, I think, out of the whole thing. He is a top 20 guy. His worst finish of the season so far is 25th. So, I mean, a 16 means that there is a pretty high ceiling and a pretty high floor. As mentioned before, the only FFL I'm taking is 250 with Shane O'Mac. As always, expect the cheat sheet to drop on Twitter on Saturday about an hour before the gates drop, right after qualifying is finished. Do not forget to check out the Patreon if you are interested in that enhanced cheat sheet. It has so much information. It has averages, it has moto scores, it has everything that you would want. It has handicap changes, who's an all-star, who's not. As well as it should have more podcast and video content coming up as soon as, like I said, this is my busiest week. After this week, I have no more in-person physical events to go to. Everything else is online, so I'm gonna have so much more time to be able to devote to getting those podcasts up. I have a couple interested parties that I'm planning on having on, and I think you guys are gonna be really excited about the guests, so be sure to check that out. Make sure to follow RotoX Fantasy on Twitter and Instagram for up-to-the-minute news on the weather, the injuries, qualifying reports, the cheat sheets, of course, and some race day memes and stats as the races go along. My name is Donnie. Thank you for watching RotoX Fantasy. Good luck this weekend, guys.